Kawasaki has built some of the greatest motorcycles in history. The Z1 that launched the superbike era, the GP Z900R that rewrote sport touring, the supercharged Ninja H2 that made every other manufacturer look boring, Jonathan Rea winning 6 consecutive World Superbike Championships on the ZX-10RR, the most dominant run the series has ever seen. But they've also made some decisions that should never be forgiven. From selling a motorcycle so dangerous, the factory literally packed spare spark plugs under the seat because it fouled them constantly, to ignoring a notorious engine-killing weak point for 20 straight years, while a random machinist in the aftermarket solved the problem for them, to building a bike whose frame could crack and collapse while you were riding it. These are the 10 worst decisions Kawasaki ever made, and one that nearly killed the brand before it even became a legend. Number 10. Killing the W650 2 years early. In 1999, Kawasaki released the W650 in the United States. It was a gorgeous vertical twin retro bike with a bevel-driven overhead cam. Motorcycle Classics said it was actually closer to original British twin DNA than what Triumph was building at the time. That mattered because Triumph was about to launch the modern Bonneville in 2001. Kawasaki had a 2-year head start on the retro segment. 2 years to establish themselves as the go-to brand for riders who wanted classic aesthetics with Japanese reliability. And what did Kawasaki do with that head start? They pulled the W650 from North America after just 2 model years. Gone. Done. They cited weak sales and Triumph's arrival. The W650's bevel-driven cam was an engineering jewel. Kawasaki's own engineers had built something Triumph could not match on authenticity, and management looked at one soft sales year and walked away. The W800 successor that came later did not reach North America until the 2019 model year, nearly 2 decades after the W650 disappeared. So Kawasaki watched from the sidelines while Triumph, Royal Enfield, Honda with the CB1100, and Yamaha with the XSR series carved up the retro market for almost 20 years. It was not until the Z900RS arrived in 2018 that Kawasaki had a real retro contender in the United States again. And that bike became the best-selling motorcycle in the 401 cubic centimeters and up class in Japan for 7 consecutive years. According to Kawasaki's own 2025 press release, citing Narinsha Shimbun trade data, the demand was always there. Kawasaki just quit too early to see it. Late 2023, Kawasaki finally entered the electric motorcycle market with the Ninja E1 and ZE1, and the specs were, let's just say, underwhelming. 5 kilowatts continuous, 9 kilowatts peak. That's roughly 12 horsepower. Top speed around 51 miles per hour, or 59 if you hit the 15-second e-boost button. Range 41 miles on twin removable battery packs. Top speed was never the selling point. The price for all of this was $7,599 for the Ninja E1. That price was hard to justify. For context, a brand new Kawasaki Ninja 500 with an actual combustion engine costs almost $3,000 less. Ride Apart pointed that out immediately, and the internet did not let it go. MCN in the UK compared the price to a Super Soco TC Max at roughly half the cost with similar specs. By 2025, the ZE1 variant had been quietly dropped after a single model year. Then in March 2025, NHTSA issued recall number 25V118, covering 216 of those E1 bikes for a missing battery terminal anchor. Riders got a do not ride advisory. That recall was embarrassing. Kawasaki entered the electric market years after Zero, Energica, and Livewire with one of the least competitive spec to price offerings in the segment, into a market where many of those early movers were already collapsing. Energica filed for bankruptcy in October 2024. Cake went bankrupt in February 2024. Livewire was bleeding cash. And Kawasaki showed up with a 12-horsepower commuter priced like a real motorcycle. Uncompetitive. Meanwhile, Kawasaki keeps demoing a hydrogen-powered H2 High SE prototype at events like the Suzuka 8 Hours and Le Mans, but their own timeline says early 2030s for anything production-ready. Their Corleo robot horse reveal at Expo 2025 in Osaka was, according to reviewers, more concept visualization than production-ready hardware. The brand's post-combustion strategy right now looks like a series of tech demos in search of an actual product. And no, I'm not making that up. Number 8. 40 years of getting punched in the cruiser market. This one is not a single bad decision. It is a pattern Kawasaki repeated for 4 decades. It starts in 1979 with the Z1300, a 1,286 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled inline-6, often compared to Honda's legendary CBX. Bennetts described the handling as being like a pig on stilts. Honda killed the CBX after 5 years. Kawasaki kept the Z1300 in production for 11 years, averaging roughly 2,200 units per year for a flagship. That is brutal. Then came the ZL900 and ZL1000 Eliminator muscle cruisers in the mid-1980s. The ZL1000 lasted 1 model year in Western markets after getting demolished by Yamaha's VMAX, roughly 2,500 units, and then it was done. The Vulcan 1500 Drifter showed up in 1999 as an Indian Chief tribute. It was pulled from North America when the real Indian brand returned. The VN2000 arrived in 2004, and at 2,053 cubic centimeters, it was the largest production V-twin motorcycle ever. It was discontinued because, according to dealer reports on Vulcan Forum, bikes were literally sitting unsold in Kawasaki warehouses. Triumph's Rocket 3 stole the displacement crown within months of the VN2000 launch anyway. The lesson Kawasaki kept refusing to learn is that heavyweight cruiser buyers are tribally loyal to Harley-Davidson. You can build a competent product, price it right, and engineer it beautifully, and still get absolutely nowhere if the culture does not accept you. Decades of cruiser development at Kawasaki's Akashi factory produced no lasting hit at the heavyweight end. That is not bad engineering, that is bad market reading, repeated over and over until it became a pattern. But Kawasaki was not done getting punched, not even close. Number 7. 6 years of chafing ignition wires. In September 2015, Kawasaki issued NHTSA recall 15V552000, covering 2009 through 2015 Vulcan 1700 Voyager and Vaquero touring cruisers. The ignition wire was rubbing against the fuel tank, slowly wearing through the insulation, and eventually shorting out and stalling the engine. The manufacturing window for the defect ran from February 2009 to March 2015. That is 6 full years of production bikes rolling out of the Kawasaki factory with a wire that was actively destroying itself every time you rode. 6 years of touring riders cruising down the highway on their Vulcan 1700 Voyagers, with progressively degrading insulation sitting between a hot fuel tank and a live ignition harness. Picture doing a cross-country trip on your touring cruiser and the engine just dies at highway speed because a wire wore through. That's not a freak occurrence. That's a design problem. Kawasaki let run for 6 model years before telling anyone. The Vulcan line had other recall adventures too. Over 31,000 Vulcan 900s were recalled for fuel hose detachment in 2008. A class action lawsuit, Napier versus Kawasaki Motors Corporation USA, filed in 2014 in the Eastern District of Missouri, alleged the 2011 Vulcan 1700 was dumping so much engine heat onto the rider's right leg that Kawasaki had started quietly selling heat shield kits as a dealer accessory. Essentially charging riders extra money to fix a design flaw Kawasaki would not publicly acknowledge. The case was dismissed on procedural grounds, but the pattern of known issue, optional accessory fix, no recall is a recurring theme in this countdown. Number 6. Betting everything on a top speed war and losing. The Kawasaki ZX-12R was supposed to be the fastest production motorcycle ever built, the Hayabusa killer. Engineering rumors out of Akashi put the target at 197 to 200 miles per hour. This was going to be Kawasaki's defining statement. Then, in late 1999, under pressure from European regulators, the major Japanese and European manufacturers signed the gentleman's agreement. Every production bike would be electronically limited to 186 miles per hour starting in 2001. Kawasaki had spent years of research and development at their Akashi Engineering Center building the fastest motorcycle on Earth, and right before launch, the rules changed. Kawasaki's response, looking back, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. They canceled the world press launch entirely. No big reveal, no magazine exclusives. They released the ZX-12R with, as Wikipedia and Jalopnik both documented, basically no fanfare or public comment. When journalists finally tested the restricted ZX-12R head-to-head against Suzuki's Hayabusa at tracks and airfields, the Kawasaki couldn't even win the capped contest. Cycle Canada wind tunnel testing pointed to inferior aerodynamics. Kawasaki blamed a vague electronic gremlin and moved on. Then came a series of small but credibility-eroding recalls. Fuel tank overflow in December 2000, tire valve issue in October 2001, stator oil leak in January 2003. By 2006, the ZX12R was dead, replaced by the ZX14 on a completely different platform. 6 years of flagship development, an entire monocoque frame architecture, all of it abandoned. It is the cleanest example of a strategic misallocation in Kawasaki's history. They chased a number, the number got capped, they lost the capped race, and they walked away. Number 5. The doohickey. 20 years of pretending nothing was wrong. This is the one that makes KLR owners lose their minds, and rightfully so. From 1987 to 2007, every single first-generation Kawasaki KLR 650 left the factory with a stamped and welded sheet metal balancer chain idler lever, Kawasaki part number 131681436, paired with a small extension spring. Over time, that lever could warp, crack, or fatigue. When it failed, debris dropped into the oil sump, and the counterbalancer chain could jump a sprocket. The result? Catastrophic engine destruction, sometimes at speed, sometimes in remote wilderness, which is exactly where KLR 650 riders tend to be. The aftermarket fix from Eagle Mike, a billet 17.4 stainless steel replacement lever and torsion spring, became so universally recommended that the part got its own nickname, the doohickey. Every KLR forum on the internet, KLR World, AdVrider, KLR650.net, all of them tell new owners the same thing. Do the doohickey upgrade before you ride the bike home from the dealer. It became the first mod, not a performance upgrade, not a cosmetic change, a preventive fix for a part the entire owner community considered a ticking time bomb. Riders were spending their own money to replace a factory component on a bike marketed for adventure touring through places where engine failure means calling a helicopter. Kawasaki's official response across 20 model years was essentially nothing. No recall, no technical service bulletin acknowledging the issue. The 2008 second-generation KLR 650 redesign still used a stamped lever, and the updated spring still draws complaints on ADV Rider to this day. A third-party machinist identified the weak point, engineered a proper fix, turned it into a cottage industry, and Kawasaki watched it happen for 2 decades without publicly addressing it. You would think someone inside Kawasaki's warranty department would have said something. Nobody did. This is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. If you are finding this helpful and you ride Kawasaki, or you just love watching companies make baffling decisions, hit subscribe. We break down motorcycle history like this every week. Number 4. Walking away from MotoGP and never coming back. Kawasaki entered modern MotoGP in 2003 and spent 6 seasons mostly in the midfield. The best results were Shinya Nakano's 3rd place at the 2004 Japanese Grand Prix and his 2nd at the 2005 Chinese Grand Prix. By 2008, the factory team was reportedly spending around €60 million per year for John Hopkins in 16th overall and Anthony West in 18th. On January 9, 2009, in the middle of the global financial crisis, Kawasaki pulled the plug. Done. Out. The racing organization Dorna forced a face-saving one-rider Hayate racing team for Marco Melandri to finish the 2009 season. Then it was over. 17 years later, Kawasaki has never returned to the MotoGP Premier Class. Think about that timeline. Even Suzuki came back, won a championship with Joan Mir in 2020, and then left again. KTM built a competitive factory program from scratch. Aprilia clawed its way to podiums. Kawasaki stayed home. The commercial argument makes sense on paper. Martin Lambert from Kawasaki Motors Europe told 44 Teeth that World Superbike delivers showroom results with cheaper production-based racing bikes. A full MotoGP campaign costs roughly £30 to £40 million annually. And honestly, Jonathan Rea winning 6 consecutive World SBK titles from 2015 to 2020 on the ZX10RR, racking up 119 career victories, the most dominant run in series history, proved the strategy could work. But as MotoMatters analyst David Emmett has argued, the MotoGP exit permanently removed Kawasaki from premier class brand visibility on the global stage. When casual fans watch MotoGP on Sunday, they see Honda, Yamaha, Ducati, KTM, and Aprilia. They do not see Kawasaki. And in the marketing world, if you are not visible, you do not exist. The 2009 exit was forgivable. The 17-year refusal to return is the strategic decision that keeps compounding. Number 3, the recall that had to be recalled. In December 2008, Kawasaki issued NHTSA recall 08V623 covering 7,986 Concours 14 touring bikes from 2008 and 2009. Small road debris was getting trapped between the rear brake pedal and the master cylinder arm. The debris would drag the rear brake into constant engagement, leading to overheating, potential lockup, and possible fire. The fix was a plastic guard installed over the pedal area, and it did not work. Stones just lodged between the new guard and the pedal instead. So in July 2012, Kawasaki issued a second recall, NHTSA recall 12V3430000, covering 13,289 Concours 14 units from 2008 through 2012. The remedy this time was to replace the rear master cylinder rod end and remove the guard that was installed in the first recall. Let me say that again. They had to remove the fix from the previous recall because it was making the problem worse. NHTSA filing records show that Kawasaki's own December 2008 internal testing had flagged problems with the original countermeasure. They shipped the fix anyway. 4 years and nearly double the affected bikes later, owners had to go back to the dealer to undo the previous fix for the same exact problem. The Concours 14 also became notorious for its kick-ass keyless ignition system, which had a micro-switch failure that would strand riders in parking lots and gas stations. And the 2008 through 2009 models had a heat issue that dumped engine warmth directly onto the rider's right leg, only addressed in the 2010 refresh. Kawasaki quietly killed the Concours 14 after the 2022 model year with no replacement, walking away from the conventional sport touring segment entirely. To Kawasaki's credit, the second recall did ultimately fix the brake issue. But the path to getting there, shipping a countermeasure they knew had problems, waiting 4 years, then recalling nearly double the original population to undo the first fix, that's not a great look for a touring bike whose riders depend on reliable brakes for 1,000-mile trips. Number 2, the frame that could split your motorcycle in half. This is one of the most serious structural defects Kawasaki has faced in the modern era. In May 2008, the NHTSA recall 08V222 covered 2006 and 2007 Ninja ZX14 hyperbikes. An over-torqued engine mount adjusting collar at the factory was leaving stress on the lower rear crossmember weld of the aluminum frame. Under normal riding conditions, over bumps, over potholes, the crossmember could crack. And in the NHTSA filing, the failure could cause the rear suspension to collapse while the rider was still on the motorcycle. Think about that for a second. You are riding Kawasaki's fastest production bike, and the rear end could give way underneath you. Forum documentation puts the affected population at roughly 11,000 machines, with multiple confirmed frame cracks reported publicly. One South African rider reported his ZX14 collapsing over a road dip at 30 miles per hour. Multiple American and European riders posted photos on ZX forums showing visible cracks propagating across the crossmember weld. The NHTSA owner notification letter told riders not to ride their motorcycles until inspection was completed. The repair required Kawasaki to ship VIN-matched replacement frame assemblies with a 9.5-hour labor allocation per bike. That is not a quick fix. That is essentially rebuilding the motorcycle from the frame up. Personal injury attorneys were still soliciting ZX14 frame cases years after the recall closed. And here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. This was not some obscure model with limited production. The ZX14 was Kawasaki's flagship, the crown jewel of the Ninja lineup, the bike that was supposed to reclaim the top speed throne after the ZX12R disaster, and its frame could crack on a pothole badly enough to collapse the rear suspension. This is the strongest counter-argument to Kawasaki's reputation for bulletproof inline fours. Their fastest, most expensive, most important production motorcycle shipped from the Akashi factory with a structural defect serious enough to cause rear-end collapse at speed. If that sounds bad, keep watching. And the one that almost killed the brand. October 1968. Honda unveils the CB754 at the Tokyo Motor Show, and the entire motorcycle industry stops breathing. Kawasaki was already deep into developing their own 750 cubic centimeter inline 4, the project code N600. Honda just beat them to the punch with the most important motorcycle of the 20th century. Kawasaki's 750 was dead on arrival. This is the moment that could have ended everything. If Kawasaki had pushed forward with a Me-Too 750, they would have been chasing Honda's taillight for a decade. If they had given up on four-cylinder development entirely, then the Ninja, the ZX series, and the modern H2 would not have happened. Instead, Kawasaki scrapped the N600 project entirely, gave designer Noromasa Tada roughly 1 month in March 1971 to restyle and enlarge the engine to 903 cubic centimeters, and then did something incredible. They ran 2 prototypes disguised as Hondas across the United States to test them in secret. Kawasaki engineers fitted Honda badges to their own test bikes so nobody would know what they were developing. That is the kind of desperation move you only make when the entire future of your motorcycle division is on the line. The result was the 1972 Kawasaki Z1 Super 4, 903 cubic centimeters, 82 horsepower, DOHC 4-cylinder, the fastest production motorcycle in the world. The bike that defined the modern superbike, the bike that gave Kawasaki its identity, the bike that made everything on this list, the Ninja, the ZX series, the H2, even possible in the first place. Remember at the beginning when I said Kawasaki has built some of the greatest motorcycles in history? The Z1 is the reason that sentence is true. And it only exists because Honda forced Kawasaki into the most terrifying engineering scramble in the brand's history. Kawasaki's worst decisions have never been about building bad engines. From the Z1 to the supercharged Ninja H2 to Jonathan Ria's 6-time championship ZX-10RR, the powertrains are arguably the strongest in Japan. The pattern is something else entirely. Late to adventure bikes, late to retro, late to electric. Wrong read on cruiser buyers, wrong bet on the ZX-12R. And once a problem showed up, Kawasaki has historically been slow to fix it, preferring technical service bulletins and accessory kits over safety recalls until their hand was absolutely forced. And yet, as of 2025, Kawasaki was the only major brand to grow in a shrinking US motorcycle market, posting a 12.7% increase while Honda fell 12%. Harley dropped nearly 13%, and KTM cratered over 25%, according to MotorcyclesData. Kawasaki led Honda for most of the year before Honda edged them out by fewer than 1,000 units in Q4 to hold on to the #1 spot. But Kawasaki finished a very close second, and more importantly, they were the only manufacturer moving in the right direction. The Eliminator 450, the Z900 RS, the Ninja 500, the refreshed KLR 650, Kawasaki is somehow winning the room they're playing in right now. 10 terrible decisions. Not one bad enough to stop them. That might be the most Kawasaki thing of all.